Millionaire sees black street kid wearing missing daughter's necklace. Then uncovers the truth. It was a gray afternoon in downtown Chicago, the kind of sky that weighed on your shoulders like unpaid bills and unspoken regrets. The city buzzed beneath it. Honking horns, murmuring sidewalk crowds, trains clattering somewhere distant, and the pulse of a city too busy to care unless you made it impossible not to. Nathaniel Granger, a man whose last name appeared in Forbes more times than he could remember, stood beneath the awning of the Fairmount Plaza, flipping through urgent emails on his phone with the same precision and emotional detachment he used to dissect billion-dollar contracts. His jet-black Bentley idled at the curb, driver waiting, the usual protocol. Nathaniel had somewhere to be, always, and yet, he stopped. The glint of a necklace caught his eye, not because it sparkled, but because it didn't. It was dull, faded, worn from years of handling, and it was being clutched by a young black boy standing across the street, maybe 10 years old at most. Wrapped in an oversized hoodie, his shoes clearly 2 sizes too big and riddled with duct tape and prayer. But it wasn't the boy that stopped Nathaniel cold. It was the necklace. The pendant was unmistakable. A tiny silver locket in the shape of a crescent moon, carved with delicate vines and inlaid with a single aquamarine chip. He had it custom-made 16 years ago. There was only one like it in the world. He gave it to his daughter, Alina, on her 4th birthday, and she'd been wearing it the day she disappeared. Nathaniel's chest tightened. Not with panic, not with fear, with something slower, older, like grief that had been quietly sitting in the corner of a pristine room, waiting patiently for someone to notice it again. He crossed the street, ignoring the traffic light, ignoring his assistant's voice through his earpiece, ignoring the email from Tokyo flagged urgent. The boy didn't notice him until he was 3 feet away. "Hey," Nathaniel said gently. The boy flinched, stepping back. "It's okay," Nathaniel added quickly, holding up both hands. "I don't want anything from you. I saw your necklace." The boy's small hand instinctively closed over it. He didn't speak. His eyes were sharp, too sharp for a 10-year-old. The kind of sharpness that came from sleeping outside and learning too young that kindness sometimes had teeth. "Where did you get that?" Nathaniel asked, his voice tight. "The necklace. It belonged to my daughter." The boy blinked, and for a moment the world felt like it paused with him. He didn't run. He didn't answer. He just looked at Nathaniel, not afraid, not hostile, just tired. "It ain't stolen," the boy finally said. "Wasn't mine first. Found it. Long time ago." Nathaniel squatted slightly, meeting him at eye level. "Where?" "Over by Ashland Station," the boy muttered. "Near the old bridge where all the tents are. In the grass. It was just there." Nathaniel's mind raced. Ashland. That was almost 3 miles from where Alina vanished. She'd been walking home from school. No cameras. No leads. Just gone. For 11 years. "Do you live out there?" Nathaniel asked. The boy shrugged. "Kinda. Not really. I go where people ain't." "What's your name?" Another pause. Then, "Micah." Nathaniel took a slow breath. "Micah, listen. I'm not angry. That necklace belonged to someone I loved more than anything. I thought it was lost forever. You don't have to give it to me, but can I see it? Just for a second." Micah hesitated, and then, slowly, he let the chain slip out from under his hoodie. It dangled between them, scratched and tarnished, but intact. Nathaniel reached for it with trembling fingers and turned it over. The inscription was still there, barely legible. "To Alina, you are my moonlight. Love, Dad." His knees nearly gave out. Micah's brow furrowed as he watched the man, this towering figure in a tailored coat, probably worth more than Micah had ever seen, tremble like a sapling in the wind. "I didn't know it was yours," the boy said quietly. "I just thought it looked safe." Nathaniel looked up, meeting his eyes. "Why do you wear it?" Micah rubbed his thumb along the locket. "'Cause when I wear it, I don't get so cold, even when I am." Nathaniel blinked back something heavy. "You live out there alone?" Micah looked away. "I used to have a friend. He gone now." "Gone where?" "Not sure. He was older. Took care of me. One night he didn't come back." Nathaniel stood up slowly, the locket still dangling in front of him like a ghost made of silver. "Micah, would you let me buy you lunch? Just talk. No pressure." Micah's eyes narrowed with suspicion, but his stomach betrayed him with an audible growl. He nodded once, hesitantly. "Okay, but somewhere where people don't stare." Nathaniel smiled gently. "I know just the place." As they walked away, side by side, a man built from boardrooms and heartbreak and a boy built from alleys and shadows. Neither of them realized that the next few days would unravel secrets neither was ready for, and that a necklace wasn't the only thing lost or found in the middle of Chicago's noise. The sun had dipped lower by the time Micah and Roland made their way toward the old train depot. The city's rhythm began to slow, afternoon rush tapering into evening traffic, neon signs blinking awake while the shadows lengthened across concrete walls painted with graffiti and layered time. Roland had swapped his Bentley for something less conspicuous, a rented black SUV with dusty floor mats and a faint fast food smell. Micah sat in the passenger seat, stiff and alert, his small hands folded in his lap. Despite the promise of a full stomach, there was a tension that never fully left his body. He wasn't used to silence without threat behind it. "You sure this is okay?" Micah asked, glancing over. "This part of town. People don't like seeing your kind here." Roland raised a brow. "You mean rich people?" Micah smirked faintly. "That, and people who dress like you ain't lost." "I suppose I am," Roland said quietly. "Just not in the way most people think." The depot loomed ahead, a rusted skeleton of a forgotten era. Its brick bones split with ivy, steel beams arched like ribs around broken windows. The air smelled of metal, old fire, and wet soil. It wasn't a place anyone went unless they had nowhere else to be. Micah guided them to a break in the chain-link fence. "This way." Roland followed as Micah navigated through tangled brush and abandoned tires. They passed a makeshift camp, collapsed tents, empty beer cans, a burned-out shopping cart, until they reached a slope near the tracks, half covered with leaves and dirt. Micah pointed to a patch of overgrown weeds. "Right there. That's where I found the necklace. It was tangled up in that wire." Roland crouched, brushing the leaves aside. His fingers moved slowly, reverently, until they found the rusted bit of fence Micah mentioned. Nothing else was visible, not yet. "I didn't touch much else," Micah said. "Didn't seem like mine to mess with." Roland stood up. "You were right." They searched the area together, Roland careful, Micah curious, until something caught the man's eye. A faded purple ribbon, half buried in the mud. He reached for it, tugged gently, and unearthed a child's shoe. His breath caught. Micah looked up sharply. "That hers?" Roland didn't answer right away. He just held the shoe like it was glass. "It's the same kind," he said, voice distant. "Size 2. He turned to Micah. "You said you used to have a friend. Someone who looked after you." Micah nodded. "Yeah, Jonas. He was older, maybe 15. Looked out for me since I ran from foster care. One day he didn't come back. I waited 2 weeks. Nothing." Roland studied him. What did he look like? Micah shrugged. Brown skin, big scar on his chin. Always wore this ratty black beanie, even when it was hot. Roland's eyes narrowed. You think he ever found anything out here? About this? I dunno. He didn't talk much, but he used to walk past here a lot. Said it was peaceful. Roland exhaled slowly. A picture was forming, blurry, incomplete, but taking shape. Micah, I need to go to the police with this. What we found here could be important. The boy stiffened. You promised. You said no trouble. I did, and I meant it. You're not in trouble. But if there's even the smallest chance that my daughter was here, that someone saw something, I can't ignore it. Micah crossed his arms. They don't listen to kids like me. They don't care unless something's broken or stolen. Roland's voice softened. I'll make sure they listen. You have my word. Micah didn't respond right away, but after a long moment he said, If you go, I'll go with you. Just don't let them treat me like garbage. Roland nodded. Never. They stood in silence for a beat longer, the wind rustling the leaves, trains echoing somewhere far off, and neither of them noticed the dark figure watching from the shadows of a crumbling warehouse across the tracks. The following morning, Roland returned to the precinct with Micah by his side, an unlikely duo stepping through the glass doors that smelled of coffee, sweat, and bureaucracy. The detective assigned to Emily's case, Lisa Harmon, met them in the narrow hallway outside the interview rooms. She was a woman of few words and sharp instincts, her graying hair pulled into a tight ponytail, eyes the color of gunmetal. Micah, is it? She asked, giving the boy a once-over. You the one with the necklace? Micah nodded, clutching the charm tighter under his hoodie. He hated the way the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, how every adult I seemed to read him like a problem before a person. But he stood his ground. He found it, Roland said, gently placing a hand on Micah's shoulder. Near the abandoned depot on the east side. He also found this. Roland handed her the small music note bead from Emily's bracelet. Detective Harmon studied it, her expression hardening. You realize if this is real, we may have just reopened the only cold trail we've got. Micah shifted uncomfortably. I didn't do anything. I just found it. No one's accusing you, kid, Harmon said, her voice softer than before. You did the right thing bringing it in. They sat down with a forensic sketch artist, and Micah described Jonas, the boy who had looked out for him and disappeared. Scarred chin. Wore a black beanie. Quiet. Always watching, he added. Harmon pinned the sketch on her board beside Emily's photo, then looked over at Roland. There's a chance this boy Jonas saw something, or worse, someone back then. But if he's gone now, we'll have to search deeper. Any idea where else he stayed? Micah shook his head. He didn't tell me much. Said secrets keep you safe. Roland's phone buzzed in his jacket. It was his assistant, Tasha. He ignored it. You're willing to go back out there with us? Harmon asked. Micah hesitated, then nodded. If it helps her. That night, Roland brought Micah home. His estate sat on several manicured acres outside the city. High hedges, gates with intercoms, a winding drive that ended in front of a house big enough to lose yourself in. Micah stared through the window as the SUV approached, his mouth parting slightly. You live here? He asked. Roland smiled faintly. Yes. Micah muttered. Man, you'll got a museum for a house. The front door opened before they reached it. Tasha, the assistant, stood waiting in heels and a tailored blazer, blinking at the child beside Roland. Sir, is everything all right? Perfectly fine, he said. This is Micah. He'll be staying in the guest suite for now. She hesitated only slightly. Yes, sir. Inside, everything was polished marble and glass. Micah moved with careful, deliberate steps, as if afraid to touch anything, as if the floor itself might reject him. He paused in front of a grand piano, fingers hovering just above the keys. Emily played that, Roland said, standing nearby. Micah lowered his hand. She was good? He asked. Brilliant. There was a pause. Then Roland added, You ever play anything? Micah shook his head. No one ever taught me. Roland made a mental note. Teach him something, anything. They ate dinner in the smaller breakfast nook, still twice the size of any table Micah had ever eaten at. The staff kept their distance, polite and quiet, but their glances lingered. Roland noticed. Micah's with me, he said once, calmly, clearly. That was all it took. Later that night, Micah lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling. He'd never seen sheets this soft, never had a room of his own. But sleep didn't come easy. Too many thoughts, too many questions. Down the hall, Roland sat in his study, sipping whiskey and scrolling through police reports again. Reviewing the area near the depot, the list of missing teens in the past 3 years, the files no one had followed up on. Then something caught his eye. A missing persons case. A boy named Jonas Bell. Last seen near the same depot. Roland stared at the photo on the file. The scar. The beanie. Micah had been telling the truth. And Jonas, whoever he was, might have been the key they never knew they were missing. Outside the house, far beyond the hedges, a figure stood in the dark, watching through binoculars. And in his pocket was a matching crescent moon necklace. The next morning began with sirens. Not the kind that scream through streets in chaos, but the quiet kind, the kind you feel beneath your ribs when something in your world shifts, even before you know why. Micah stood at the massive kitchen island, still in borrowed clothes, holding a piece of toast and staring through the floor-to-ceiling windows at the fog creeping across the lawn. Something about this place still didn't feel real, like it might disappear the second he blinked too long. Roland entered, phone pressed to his ear, tie loose, eyes sharper than usual. They found something, he said as he ended the call. At the depot, a new lead. Micah froze. What kind of lead? Another piece of Emily's bracelet. Same blue bead. And nearby, a journal. The boy tilted his head. A journal. Old. Torn. Water damaged. But the name Jonas Bell is scribbled inside the cover, along with what looks like coordinates. Micah's heart jumped. Coordinates to where? They're taking a team there now. But I want to go. And I want you with me. The boy hesitated. Why me? Because Jonas trusted you, Roland said simply. And if there's anything else hidden out there, you may see it before anyone else does. By noon, they stood once again among rusted steel and broken glass. The depot now surrounded by yellow tape and city officials. Detective Harmon was already on site, boots crunching through dead leaves, a frown carved deep into her face. We followed the coordinates, she told Roland, pointing beyond the fence to a wooded patch of land. Led to a buried box. Inside were drawings, dozens of them. Stick figures, a girl, a man, and someone smaller always watching. And this? She handed him a folded photo, a Polaroid, grainy but clear enough to see. Emily, maybe a year before she vanished, sitting beside Jonas. Smiling. Roland's throat tightened. They knew each other? Seems that way, Harmon replied. And more, there's a list on the back. Names, initials, locations. It looks like Jonas was documenting people. People he thought were involved. Micah stepped closer. He was trying to protect her. Harmon nodded slowly. or uncover something. That night, Roland sat in his study, the box from the woods open on his desk. The drawings, crude but heartbreaking, told a story no one had read until now. There were depictions of a man with a cigarette burn on his cheek, a woman with red hair, a van parked beside the depot, and finally, a stick figure of a boy, Micah, standing beside a tree with a necklace in his hand. "Micah," Roland said, calling the boy in. Micah entered quietly. "Yeah." He handed the drawing to him. "Did Jonas ever say where he came from?" "Not really," Micah said, studying the page. "But he once told me he was running from someone who took things that weren't theirs. Said they hurt kids, that they'd tried to hurt a girl he knew. He never gave names." Roland nodded. "Then we're closer than we think." He stood, walked to the large portrait of Emily that hung above the fireplace, and touched the frame gently. Micah joined him. "You really think Jonas was trying to save her?" "I think he tried harder than most adults ever did," Roland replied, his voice low. "And I think you're the reason I ever found him." Micah's eyes dropped. "I ain't no hero, man." "You are," Roland said. "You just don't know it yet." Suddenly, a knock at the front door. The butler opened it, and standing there, drenched in sweat and rain, was a tall, lean man with a scar on his chin, and a black beanie in his hand. "Jonas," Micah whispered. The man looked older, worn, eyes shadowed by time and fear, but alive. "I didn't know where else to go," Jonas said, voice shaking. "They found me again. I had to warn you." Roland stepped forward. "Warn us about what?" And Jonas looked him dead in the eye. "They're still taking kids." Jonas sat curled in a soft leather armchair that seemed too clean for someone like him. Rainwater dripping from his jacket, his trembling hands wrapped around a cup of tea that he hadn't touched. The living room, usually pristine and quiet, now buzzed with urgency. Roland stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Micah sat nearby, watching Jonas like he was seeing a ghost. "How long have you been hiding?" Roland asked, his voice low but firm. "Too long," Jonas whispered. "Since the depot. Since the day Emily disappeared." "What do you mean they found you again?" Micah asked. Jonas finally looked up. His eyes, sunken and bloodshot, locked with Roland's. "There's a man powerful, connected. He ran that old warehouse like it was a farm, except he wasn't growing anything. He was collecting." Roland's hands tightened into fists. "I saw Emily with him, just once. That necklace, I took it from him when he wasn't watching. I planned to run back to get her out, but I got chased. I barely made it out alive." His voice cracked. "By the time I came back, she was gone. The place was torched." "Why didn't you come forward?" Roland demanded. "I was a Blackstreet kid," Jonas said, bitter. "No ID, no voice. Who was going to believe me over a man in a suit?" The room went quiet. Then Roland said quietly, "I would've." Micah stood up. "Can we still find him? That guy? Whoever ran the place?" Jonas nodded slowly. "He's back. Different name now. Different face. But I saw him last week. Near the West Docks. Still wearing the same ring with the red gem." Detective Harmon was called within minutes. By nightfall, a sting operation was underway. Roland, refusing to stand by, insisted on joining. With Harmon's help and Jonas's intel, they traced the man, now going by Gregory Klein, to a private estate near the water. The raid was fast, coordinated, and broadcast across every news station in the region. Gregory was arrested. Files were found. Videos, names, victims, including one marked Emily Lawson. But there was no closure because there was still no sign of Emily herself. Days passed. Jonas was taken into protective custody. Micah stayed with Roland. And then, just when silence had returned, a call came. It was from a shelter. In a different city. A young woman had arrived with no ID, no voice, and a faded crescent moon necklace around her neck. Roland flew there personally. When he stepped into the small room, he saw her. Grown now, face thinner, hair longer, but her eyes, those were Emily's. "Dad?" she whispered, voice hoarse from years of not speaking. Roland didn't say a word. He just fell to his knees, took her hands in his, and wept.